It is very important that we have this conversation to raise awareness about mental health. Every year, around 12 lakh students appear for UPSC in India. Only around 0.001% get selected in the top 200.
There is this high expectation from the community and the parents and the institution. So if you have a single child, where the kid will share his feelings to?
The problem is our perception of mental illness, how we perceive it, how we accept it, how we refuse to accept it, rather, how we refuse to acknowledge it. That is when we initially had the Mental Health Act come in 2017. For the first time recognized that they are not criminals or people who need to be punished, they are people who need help, who need support.
They are victims themselves.
Absolutely, they are victims. Judgment is a very detailed judgment. There are a lot of directions which we will talk about again.
Do you know a Joy Lobo? Sadly, we all know a Joy Lobo in our lives. Our topic of conversation today is something that is talked about in many different avenues by many different people of all places, faces, backgrounds, and ages. It's about mental health. It's something that is very important, the need of the hour, and it has been a spotlight on by the recent judgment by the Honorable Supreme Court in Sukhdev Saha versus State of Andhra Pradesh. In light of such judgment, it is very important that we have this conversation to raise awareness about mental health and share the expertise that we have on hand today. Fortunately for us, we are joined by two eminent persons whose background gives them some certain authority to educate us. We are joined today by Dr. Pankaj Singh, Assistant Director at the State Mental Health Authority of Uttarakhand. Dr. Pankaj is an internationally and nationally known figure in mental health regulation, prevention of substance abuse, and mental illnesses. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Pankaj. We are also joined by Dr. Aman Rab, has been in the practice for nearly 2 decades before the Honorable High Court and other courts and tribunals. He has advised state departments, educational bodies, and environmental authorities on high-stake matters impacting public welfare. His deep engagement with institutional law, student rights, and systemic reforms bring a vital legal perspective to this conversation on mental health in education today. Thank you for joining us today, sir. So, I'm sure you know that one of the toughest exams in the world is the UPSC. And so, every year around 12 lakh students appear for UPSC in India. And only around 0.001% get selected in the top 200. So it creates this environment of immense pressure on the students, on the aspirants who are dreaming of, qualifying for this exam. And so that is one of the most difficult parts of the journey itself, is that how do we deal with the immense amount of mental pressure? So in this regard, what does medical expertise say about mental health, about mental illnesses, especially with the young generations and youth of India?
Actually, these are academic pressures, which nowadays this young age population, like young adolescents and young adults, basically they are facing. So now today there is a world of competition, and these academic pressures are basically increasing, and these are actually generated by either the students themselves, through their parents, through the community, through their educational institutions. So there is a pressure of performance, there are pressure of doing something, showing something. And the thing is that, as we know, that everyone is not same, and everyone is unique. So everyone has a different coping capacity to deal with these pressures with comfortability. So there are some students which are more comfortable to deal with this pressure, and there are some students which are not comfortable to deal this pressure. So basically dealing with the same pressure to all the children is not actually practically feasible and good. So the thing is that these are ultimately leading to generation of mental illness. Do you know what is the burden of mental illness in the country, over the globe? So basically, if we say about common mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, and some others, So 14 crore of total population of India is basically suffering from common mental illnesses. This is being studied by the National Mental Health Prevalence Survey, which was conducted during 2014 to 16. It means 10% of total population of India is basically suffering from common mental illnesses, and this is a huge burden. So if we speak about the severe mental illnesses, that is 0.8%, where we need some treatment, admissions, and all these things. But this is a huge burden, and all these academic pressures might be significantly leading to addition to these burden of mental illnesses in this.
So, what question comes to my mind is, so there seems to be a very distinct difference between severe mental illnesses which are treatable via medication versus mental illnesses such as depression, which is affecting a larger
Yes.
section of the population. So could you perhaps please elucidate upon?
Yes, as I said, they are basically common mental illnesses, what I said. So common mental illnesses includes mild depression, mild anxiety. So during the academic pressure, these young population basically sometimes get in the grip of these common mental illnesses. So basically, what is the source of this academic pressure? So the source of this academic pressure is basically there is this high expectation from the community and the parents and the
Right.
institution. So they have to deal with this high academic pressures, and also there is so much of competitions. Like generally, people would say, "Now your cousin has scored this much, and your
Oh.
friends have scored this much."
Sharma ji ke bete.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically, what just imagine as an empathy to the student who is studying. Basically, what pressure it creates to that kid. So what he is dealing with nowadays, what we are seeing that the families are basically shrinking. So families are going on a single child norms and
Oh,
single child.
so that also has
Yes,
an
yes,
impact.
yes, yes.
Okay,
So if you have a single child, where the kid will share his feelings to whom he will share his feelings. So what happens sometimes, they goes to their parents, but parents are generally both are working, so they are not able to give time to the kids. So we have to think with the point of view of the students also. So with this much of academic pressures, so actually this leads to generation of common mental illnesses, in the children, like the simple depression, simple anxiety, which will lead to physical symptoms, somatic symptoms like headache, loss of appetite,
Right.
irregular sleeps, palpitations, and all these kind of smaller symptoms can generate to them, and this can further lead to behavioral changes like withdrawal from studies. The student can start withdrawal from the studies, and these are actually early warning signs also, which can be identified at the early stage. And sometimes these things can lead to child to basically socially isolated, not speaking with their friends, not speaking with their cousins, not speaking with their parents, and sometimes they get into some unhealthy habits like substance abuse. So all things is somehow connected.
Right.
So we need to definitely, this is a time to think about this and take some reformative changes, so that we can actually break this chain and bring our children back into the healthy environment which is needed nowadays.
Right, sir. Dr. Aman, thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you.
So, now that we have addressed the medical aspects of how mental illness can affect students and young people in particular, so what does law say about mental illnesses, first of all, sir? And so, would you please care to shed some light on the case itself?
Right, Nirbhay, good question, but if you allow me to just go into a backdrop of
Right,
this
sir, absolutely,
before diving into the judgment.
Please, sir.
So please understand that, like Dr. Pankaj rightly said, that WHO defines it, and mental health is an essential component of health itself. But this is a standard of WHO. But you and I know for sure, and I'm sure Dr. Pankaj is going to agree with me. Here in our country, particularly, mental health is not considered as important, if at all important. And I think that is the problem which has essentially been addressed by the judgment. So let us first look at the problem. The problem is, in our country, mental health is a weakness. It is a taboo.
Right.
It is a problem which is in the child itself. It is not something like if a child falls sick. So we understand that there is a problem and he needs support from outside in the form of medicine or in the form of care, affection, whatever. So we understand physical illnesses, and we know that in case of a physical illness, an intervention is required from outside. But in case of a mental illness, we somehow assume that if somebody is going through depression, or like Dr. Saab said, initial symptoms, yeah, mild symptoms, so we feel that it is actually something lacking in the child, in the person, that they are not strong enough.
We tend to victim blame.
Yes, and the idea is that the fact that they're going through depression is also their problem. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right, sir.
And this is the perspective which is all pervasive. You go to schools, you go to colleges, you go to these so-called coaching centers. If the child is not able to perform, if he's not able to study 8 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours, I
Then
don't know
they're
how many
shunned,
hours
or they're-
a day, so he is not good enough. Now, in a realistic environment, who can sustain, I don't know, there must be people doing it, with due respect to all of them, who can sustain a lifestyle wherein you are studying 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours a day on a continuous basis. And this is exactly, and then like Dr. Pankaj rightly said, that there are expectations, and I'm not going into the cause because he's already considered that. But the problem is our perception of mental illness, how we perceive it, how we accept it, how we refuse to accept it, rather, how we refuse to acknowledge it.
Right.
And that is the problem, that is the problem fundamentally. And schools do not consider it necessary to have trained teachers who are trained in trained to handle students,
Or rather, even have awareness that students.
absolutely. So I think that should be the first point. First of all, even the teachers don't have basic level awareness of mental issues,
Right.
And how to tackle them, how to identify them,
Correct.
right? And they have absolutely no training. Teachers who've been teaching for 20 years, 30 years, they have absolutely no training, professional training, of how to identify mental issues and how to deal with them. And then we go to schools. We're in Dehradun, and we have so many prestigious schools. And you will be surprised when I tell you that the number of trained psychologists or counselors, as we may say, there are very, very few schools who have them. And most of the schools have some in-house, a teacher who is also a counselor, and this is the standard mechanism.
Oh.
And if you are going through some problem in school or something like that, so nobody refers you to a counselor. They reprimand you. They, they try to blame you only, and they try to, in their understanding of it, correct you with things like shame, things like guilt, things like fear. Obviously, in today's scenario, they cannot beat you, which used to happen earlier on.
Correct.
But so now the other mechanisms are emotionally controlling mechanisms,
Which would be even worse for
which
someone.
will absolutely be worse, and which is why you can see that there is a downward trend in the overall mental state. Overall, I would say, if there is a happiness index, it's going
Right.
down.
It's going down.
Particularly in our country, because the expectations are very high, the population is very large, the student-teacher ratios are weird in our country, right? You have, on an average good school, you have 40 kids in one class with one teacher. So there's not enough time for a human one-on-one interaction. So you are treated like, sheep. And this is the reason, because like Dr. Pankaj rightly said, every person is unique. So
Right, sir.
everybody has got ups, downs, and those issues are not being addressed, or were not being addressed. And that is when we initially had the Mental Health Act come in 2017. So 2017, for the first time, we had a statutory framework in our country, so where recognition was given, and a statutory framework was laid out that mental health is important. It has to be safeguarded. And it is for the first time, I think, in a statutory way, wherein it was clearly said that they are not to be punished, because traditionally in IPC section 306, we used to punish people.
Right, sir.
And now Mental Health Act clearly for the first time recognized that they are not criminals or people who need to be punished. They are people who need help, who need
They are
support.
victims themselves.
Absolutely, they are victims, and they are ill in the sense, in an equal sense, like
in the most
like
real sense of the word,
Absolutely.
they are ill.
Absolutely. So I think that was the first transformative change which came about. Statutory framework. So obviously, it has it's binding on everybody. And please understand also that our society is such that we are not very adaptable to change. We have our own philosophies and patterns which we are carrying on, but we sometimes, we are all on Instagram and WhatsApp, but you want to stick on to the traditional teaching patterns of 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Right,
40
sir.
years.
I was so it's I'm really glad that you mentioned the teaching part as well. So because one question that I'm sure a lot of students also have is it really the fault of the teachers themselves? Can we blame them, or is it rather also a question of the framework of teaching teachers or training teachers themselves? Because if teachers have not been trained in a particular way to deal with how children might have such issues and how to deal with them, how to recognize these things. So then in such cases, can the teachers really be blamed, or is it rather the framework behind the teachers?
Framework behind the teachers, our mindset as a society, the way we look at mental illness or mental health generally, and that is what we were just talking about. So that perception fundamentally has to change. But the point that I was trying to make was, like in our country, back in the day when the Britishers were in charge of things, ruling the country, so you had the Sati Prohibition Act.
Right.
That is only then was sati abolished,
Abolished.
right? Sati Abolition Act, I think.
Yes.
And now you have, similarly, you have to have this. There was a lack of statutory framework. There was rampant harassment of women in the workplace, and there was no law. So, in Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan, the Apex Court laid down the framework under Article 142, and it continued to remain the framework until and unless it was, the
Made into a
legislature
law.
brought in the
Correct, sir. Posh Act.
Posh Act. So, likewise, now this judgment in Sukhdev Singh, this is a judgment which is again obviously landmark, but it and very clearly says so that because there is a gap in the legislature, there is no legislation on this aspect. Therefore, under the Apex Court exercising its constitutional power under Article 142, has spelled out, laid down a framework very clear, making it mandatory for schools to have those essential, things in place, which includes counselors on
Right,
board,
sir.
full-time counselors, non-teacher
Dedicated counselors.
dedicated counselors. Also, the judgment is a very detailed judgment. There are a lot of directions which we'll talk about again. But then, what is essential is now it is not my choice. It is not your choice. It is not the sweet will of the school administration or the principal or the board of directors. It is mandatory, and I think that is what is a very, very, what would I say, a giant step forward, because they've made it now mandatory. So what is going to happen? Obviously, there's going to be a time gap between it coming from the book to the actual implementation on the ground. But now you can actually demand it. You can ask for it as a matter of right. And schools cannot,
Turn
do it.
you away anymore.
Yes, and it's not, again, like I said, I'm really repeating myself, sweet will. Now you have to do it. And there are certain criteria that if there are less than 100 students, then you can have some external people on board. And for every 100 students, there has to be a counselor. And there's a mandatory guideline wherein all teachers have to undergo certain necessary training for identification and dealing with mental illnesses every year. So I think, and then we are going to discuss it further. I think that is the basis of the judgment. And like Dr. Pankaj rightly said, there's a very large section of society, and this large section of society was entirely neglected. And in fact, they were blamed for their own mental illness. So I think this judgment deserves to be applauded, appreciated, and welcomed in every way possible.
So, Dr. Pankaj, Aman sir has just enlightened us about how reform could be introduced in the teaching aspects. So, could there be any other reforms that could be introduced?
Dr. Aman very well said. And Nirbhay, I just want to highlight here not about the reforms, but a very important aspect which must be dealt with in today's life forms. Now, so what is actually what I feel is that now, and you all will agree that if we speak about a student, either he's a school going student or a college student, so where they spend their 60 to 70% of time, in their schools, in their colleges, along with their colleagues, along with their batchmates. So this is a very important place where something can be done. For what can be done actually, nowadays what is happening, so like as you said, basically every school should have some kind of mental sessions for students. As I already told, that what is happening, the nuclear families are growing up. So majority of the people are having single child, and the kids are basically missing their siblings. So schools and colleges are the places where they are finding out their friends, and their siblings and their friends, where they are sharing their thoughts. So so these are the places where we can do something for them. So if school adopts these strategies of having mental health sessions, mental health talks with the students, there should be some dedicated things, then definitely it will help the kids and the children to share their things with the people. So what is happening now ki, if a school is not having a counselor, so counselor is the person who can do counseling. So even actually mental health is not a rocket science. It is just a science of communication. If you listen to somebody and you speak to somebody, that heals very much. And I think many much today's life scenario is basically people are trying to talk to each other either through social medias. And what is social media? They are trying to connect through a virtual media. So that is actually needed in a physical term. So if the mental health sessions are happening in the schools, then many students can take their benefit. So what is happening also, the teachers can be trained in basic mental health things, like it is not a, I already said, it's not a rocket science. If they understand the mental health science, with little bit of training or little bit of, many things are available on online media, and many smaller training courses are also going on through very good government prestigious institute, which can be taken by the teachers and the counselors. So they can actually identify the early warning signals of some kids. Like I said, every kid is basically a unique person. We cannot actually measure on the same parameter all the children.
Right, sir.
So as I told that some of the kids can comfortably actually adjust with these academic pressures, but there is a large chunk which cannot actually adjust with the comfortably with this academic pressure. So there are early warning signals. So what has happened now, if a teacher is in the class, they can identify some students who are lagging behind, and actually with focusing more on those students who are doing good, I think more attention should be given to those students who are basically
absolutely,
lagging
sir.
behind. And if you actually identify the early warning signals, like continuous absenteeism, withdrawal, social withdrawal, not talking to their friends, and isolating them, and some weird behavior, these are the actually some risky, some early warning signals which can be identified. And if these children can be counseled or given some mental health counseling, I think this is a primordial or primary step which can be done to prevent some major event which can happen in near future. So this is the event where a sapling is actually growing, and it is going, they are going to the college, they are going to compete in big competitive exam like UPSC, medical, NEET, JEE, and all these things. So this is the place where the saplings can be actually can be made, we can make them healthy by giving these mental health things. So there are three things, like we can have mental health counseling sessions in the schools. We can identify these early warning signals of the students in school and colleges. Not needed on daily basis, but on alternate basis, the well-being sessions can be done for the students. There should be a session where they can actually express their thoughts, where they can discuss among their counterparts, with their colleagues and all this, where they can share their thoughts with the teachers. So this will give them a room to actually open up and discuss their problems, which they are not able to do in the homes or in the society. So I think this is very good. And and we have the parents teacher meeting kind of culture. So instead of only talking about the grades, scores, and marks of the students, if a kind of multidisciplinary approach can be taken, like parents, teacher, students, they can be engaged in a platform, so that the student can be actually monitored, supervised, and mental well-being can be done for that child. So this kind of thing actually we can do to engage parents, to better understand their kid, that what is happening with him, what he is doing in the college. So there can be orientation sessions for the parents in the school also, along with the parent teacher meeting, where they can be oriented not only about the score, marks, academic things of the student, but how to how mentally and emotionally the child is doing. So this is the thing. I think they're kind of mental and emotional understanding of the child, and can be shared with the parents, so parents can understand that how we have to deal with him or her in house. So that will give a space to the
Right.
children, because if you, because there are academic pressure, everyone wants that my child get the highest score. The highest score will be get by only one person,
One
second
person.
highest will be get by only one person. So everyone cannot get the highest marks. So I think we have to come out of this kind of thinking. Every child is unique, and every child can do anything in their life if they are well groomed, well cared, and well mentally handled.
So speaking about something very important that you just touched upon, sir. So you mentioned parents and how they can also be brought into and become a part of the process itself. So very often, so even when we were having our conversation previously, so you mentioned how parents can inadvertently चाह के ना चाह के भी वो प्रेशर बन जाते हैं. सो तो पेरेंट्स का भी एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट महत्वपूर्ण रोल है, इम्पोर्टेंट रोल दैट दे हैव टू प्ले इन द लाइव्स ऑफ देयर किड्स. How can we also introduce parents into this conversation without placing any blame or making them feel that they might be a reason? How can we make them aware that this is a genuine problem, the problem is separate, आप अलग हैं, आपकी फैमिली इंपॉर्टेंट है, और प्रॉब्लम को कैसे देखा जाए और अपनी फैमिली को अलग कैसे देखा जाए?
Actually, in my view, nobody is the reason. This is actually societal things which have developed, and people are living in that. All the academic pressure, all the competition, all the performance pressures are basically societal things. So it is actually inbuilt. So we cannot say that anybody or any person is the reason. But engaging everybody in a common platform is an important aspect. So the educational institute where our children is going can become a platform where they can engage students along with their parents. They have to understand both of them, because after the college and after the school, the kid has to go to their home. So at the home, what is happening, and even what at the home, what is happening, majority of the students are going to their tuitions, or home tuitions are coming to them. So again, there is so much of burdening of homework and all. So we have to understand that what kind of pressure actually the kid is taking, and this cannot happen without talking to him, without having a one-to-one communication with. So this is the role of every parent, that they should maintain a very good relationship with their kid. They have to understand these primordial signs, early warning signals, if they are happening, if their kid is actually comfortably coping up with the condition, that is important. If he or she is not coping, what are the reasons, how they can handle, where they can take help of their teachers, their counselors, their principals, their institution. So at what point actually they can, as already I mentioned, that there is a chain. Like if they are not, the kids are not able to handle the pressure, they will go to the mental illnesses. The mental illnesses go to physical symptoms, then they will go to the behavioral impacts. And you know, at the at very severe note, many self-harm kind of activities can be done. So these needs to be avoided. So if we take action at the primordial step, like where it is generating, then we can definitely prevent these self-harm. And these are actually general things what we have to do. But how the things are actually practically becomes very difficult to implement. So what we can do, so as a doctor and as a manager, public health is especially, so what I can suggest, like if you want to interact with your child, that is very important, it is needed actually. Yeah, the children need your time. So basically, and we have to reduce their screen time also, screen time of mobile and television. So it can be done that the whole family can bring some kind of interactive games, physical games, like in times we had ludo, carom boards and all this, and nowadays many games are coming, like business games and other type of games. So these games actually can give a platform to the child to get interact with the parents. So these kind of practical solutions can be done, which can help in increasing the interaction, and basically reducing the screen time of the child. And other things can be done, like playing some outdoor games with the child, where when they start playing with the parents now, and slowly they will start sharing their thoughts, their ideas, what they are thinking, what are their issues, what are their challenges, what they are facing, problems in their studies, what they want to become, how the academic pressure is actually giving pressure to them, what they are thinking. They can share their early symptoms to the parents, because the first reporting unit is the parents. When the parent understand that my child is suffering from this symptom, then they can only bring to the mental health professional. So that is the first point where where these mental issues can be
Sir,
identified.
and playing
Yeah.
maybe like a physical activity with
Yes.
a kid
Yes.
could give them the platform to engage in a much deeper way
Yeah.
where they are able to share their thoughts and
Yes, yes, yes,
experiences.
definitely. Similarly, in schools, like we said, we should have a counselor, we should have a mental health professional, we should have teachers who can interact with. But how we can do it practically? So we have to mandate kind of well-being periods, interactive periods, either per day or alternate day. Per day it is good, where the students can actually share their thoughts with each of them, where they are open to speak, open to discuss on a topic,
Right,
where
so
they
because
can
otherwise
actually,
तो
yeah,
बोलने में तो डांट पड़ती है
yeah.
क्लास में.
So teachers must give them that flexibility
Right.
to interact with each of them, and they can identify some good seniors who can be make mentors to the children who are identified with some early warning symptoms, like absenteeism, withdrawal, social withdrawal,
So,
and
so
all
the
this.
peer-to-peer
Yeah,
connection might
peer connection. Yeah,
reduce.
yeah, peer connection can be done, where they can learn from their senior, that they have a person who is their mentor, who can give them some advice, academic advice,
And
personal
as a
advice, and
growing
all.
teenager, it
Yeah,
won't even be awkward for them to
yeah,
perhaps directly,
yeah. Yes,
go
yes,
to a
yes,
teacher, but rather
yes,
someone who is
yes,
just a senior.
yes, yes. So these are kind of practical things we can actually implement to bring some societal change,
Right,
and solve all these problems.
right.
I'm not saying that it can change very quick, but they can give some slow changes, and definitely it will impact the physical, mental, and social health of the growing children.
Very rightly said, sir. That slow hoga, but slowly but surely we'll get to where we need to
Yes,
be.
yes, kind of things. So that is one of the preventive things where we have to work together.
Dr. Pankaj, I had a very, maybe it's a dumb question to ask you, sir, because you're such an expert. But, sir, because I have very little knowledge in the medical field, sir, I just wanted to understand, sir, what is the difference between, let's say, a disease like, sir, Alzheimer's or dementia versus, sir, depression or anxiety, sir, because मुझे तो लगता है, sir, because both are mental illnesses only. So, sir, how are they different?
Actually, I told you earlier na, that there are common mental illnesses. So there is basically a difference between mental illness and mental retardation kind of thing, mental disease. So there are some diseases where there are actually pathophysiological degeneration. So it starts with that kind of pathophysiological degeneration, either brain degeneration is and these kind of things. So they are leading to some symptoms which are very common to mental illnesses, but there is a basically a degeneration behind that. Mental illnesses are basically, if we speak about the common mental illnesses, so we can say this depression, severe anxiety disorders, substance abuse disorders, and this alcohol disorders, tobacco disorders. So these actually come into the mental illnesses. It includes psychosis, schizophrenia. These disorders are also come into the mental illnesses. So these are basically happening because of many web of causation. Multiple causes are there. There's
Right.
not single or degenerative causes.
Okay.
There is a web of causation. There are environmental causes, physical causes, biological causes, emotional causes, psychological causes. So there is a web of things behind that. And the best thing is that it can be prevented if it is identified at the early stage. Na, it can be prevented. So if a person, what happens that if a person is going towards mental illnesses, they generally come late to the mental health professional. So if because even today mental illnesses are considered as a stigma, as a taboo. So people don't come early. So if in a society we have healthier environment and we reduce this stigma and taboo, and the people can actually share their symptoms early na. So these early warning signals can be identified at the earlier stage and can be treated very well. All the medicines are available to treat, but once it takes a bad shape na, then it becomes a difficult thing to treat.
So just going back to something that you mentioned is, so you said that it can even impact behavior. So if something can impact behavior, could it also have an effect on the sir, the development of the child themselves, sir, perhaps in the growth of the child or the
Yes, definitely. How WHO defines health? Health is basically physical, social, and mental well-being. So these are very important three characteristics which needs to be healthy to remain healthy.
right?
So if you are not mentally healthy, you will not be socially healthy. And if you are not mentally and socially healthy, you will not be physically healthy. So it will definitely impact all the domains of the health.
So mental illnesses or things like depression could manifest physiologically as well.
Yes, definitely.
Right. So uh, if you would want to give a final message or something that students must remember from today's conversation.
So the final message from my side is, I think Dr. Aman can also complement in that. So basically, as I already said, every individual is unique. Our genetics are different, and we grow differently, but as a same species. So we should not be understood like a common thing, and we should not be measured in a common parameter. Finally, we all are human beings. The kids are human beings, so we have to let them flexibly grow. We have to give them environment where they can actually grow with their thoughts, their freedom, their flexibility. And definitely when we the society give these children all these flexibilities, they will definitely grow to a very good individual, and we will prevent all the common mental illnesses and the severe mental issues which is supposed to develop if all these things are not there. So we will have a healthy society. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Aman, what are the actual guidelines or the directions that have been given by the Honorable Supreme Court in this case, Sukhdev Saha versus State of Andhra Pradesh?
So, Nirbhay, in Sukhdev Saha, a number of guidelines have been given. It's quite exhaustive, so I cannot offhand recall all of them, but I'll deal with talk about the important ones. I think what is the most important one is that every educational institution, and when we say educational institution, it means schools, it means colleges, and it also includes the coaching centers.
Oh.
Okay, most importantly, they have to have their own guidelines, and there are certain NGOs whose guidelines they have to, like Umeed, their guidelines they can use as a model, as a draft, and improve upon that. Then all in institutions, schools, coaching institutes, everybody, they have to have trained counselors. Okay, and there is it has to be in a proper ratio with the student to counselor ratio has to be proper, and that's also laid out in the judgment. Apart from that, what is important is all these teachers as well as non-teaching staff. So that is what's important. Teachers as well as non-teaching staff have to be trained twice every year.
Oh.
With respect to identification of mental illnesses and how to deal with them.
So the Supreme Court has indeed highlighted what we were talking about.
Absolutely, and the vision of the Honorable Apex Court is very clear. They have, like in Vishaka, I always say this, and that the judiciary is the conscience of the society. So the judiciary, once again, they have done a fantastic thing. The inclusion of non-teaching staff shows the vision of the Honorable Court. It shows that, the signs, sometimes what might happen is that the teachers who are dealing with 30 students, 40 students may not be able to identify. But a non-teaching staff who's an administrative staff, the people who are helping around in the schools, they may be able to identify. And that is, I think, a superb step, a great direction that there is, that even the non-teaching staff have to be trained. And obviously, class segregation based on marks, these things you cannot do anymore. So I don't know, even schools, there are very famous schools who give you a section according to your performance. That's a way of demoralizing. So if you're in section D, E, then you're the last of the rod, you're the backbencher of the school, right? So those things you can't do anymore. I think even in coaching institutes there is a mechanism of allotment of classes according to your score or according to your performance. So that also you can't do anymore. So I think the Apex Court has really thought it through and laid down many guidelines. And I think every parent, every teacher, every stakeholder in the education system should read the directions, not just for implementation, but for an insight, a real understanding of the problem that we are facing as a society, as a country, as a nation.
So when you have highlighted an excellent point in the judgment, which is the teaching of the training of the non-teaching staff. So would that include the school bus driver also, perhaps? Because very often interactions between kids take place in buses. That could also have an
So
impact.
the direction says non-teaching staff, but if I may take the luxury of interpreting it, uh, I don't see any reason why it should not include them. In fact, it should include every single stakeholder in the education process, not just the teachers. And I'm sure that sports instructors are also teachers, but them and support staff, like I said. And I would even go on to say that even the teachers running informal tuitions, they should also, even if it's not mandatory strictly, but they should take a step forward and train themselves, or at least make themselves aware of these things so that they can identify these signs. Because we are in some sort of a hurry, we are in some sort of a like they always say, rat race, to get on the top. And like Dr. Pankaj rightly said, it's not possible for everybody to be a topper. So I think we have to, the fundamental change that is required, and I keep emphasizing it, is a change of perspective. And this judgment, again, I will choose a different line of thought. I remember interacting with the principal of a very prestigious school recently, who was very proud about the fact that he does not believe in counselors. And I think that is exactly the problem which this judgment solves. So now it is not your discretion, it is not your own sweet will, it is not your own thought, it is mandatory and you have to do. That slowly but swiftly, surely, will bring about a change in the society, in how our children are brought up, in their mental health status, and eventually how happy we are and how we grow and prosper as a nation.
Here's to hoping, sir, that this future that you have painted a picture for us will come to be true very soon.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. I mean, that's the funny thing about society today. That, sir, गाड़ी की सर्विसिंग के लिए we are ready to go every other year, but we get one body, one mind. We rarely ever service that. So definitely, sir, absolutely very well said, sir, that we need to take better care of this
Yes.
one thing that we have.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.